but mentally, I did always feel like I had this ability where I wasn't worried about ever not being able to handle something I would encounter. In other words, I kind of felt from very early on that, whatever it is, I'll deal with it. I'll handle it. It might be miserable, but I'll figure a way out or figure a way through it. So I did have that going for me early on. And I think that's kind of what propelled me to where I am now is that willingness to kind of put up with inconvenient things, difficult things, and rather than kind of, throw up my hands in frustration, is like, well, dig in and how can I make this work for me? Or what am I going to do in response?
Yeah. That's a valuable characteristic. I did not have that characteristic growing up at all. We've talked about it in the past on this show. I was very much if it got uncomfortable, if it got difficult, I was going to shy away. So for you to say that you were the opposite of that, that's very admirable, especially as a young kid, to be able to be that way.
And admittedly, it wasn't across the board though. So I was very much like a loner, independent kid. I didn't have a close relationship with my family. My sister was out of the house early. So I was kind of just essentially a latchkey kid, but 50% by choice, 50% by circumstance, that's just kind of how I operated. And so I think that was a big part of it is that sense of independence and self-reliance. And like, well, if I want something done, I'm going to do it myself. And I'm still that way. And so I think that was a huge underpinning of that sense that, hey, I'm able to do all these things on my own. So why can't I do this over here? But at the same time, I had this just like crippling insecurity and self-consciousness to the point where, even up to, I remember being, like 19 years old, I lived in Arizona for a while, went to school there briefly, and I would run out of food sometimes because the anxiety of going to the grocery store would keep me in my house, which is, I look back at that now and I'm like, I can't even remember exactly what that was like because it's so much better now. I've been given weightlifting seminars for the past 10 plus years, and I'll spend 2 days by myself speaking in front of a big crowd. And I compare those two experiences and it's like, well, that's about the biggest change you can make.
Polar opposite.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little about when you say I had too much anxiety to go to the store, what do you mean by that?
I mean, literally, if I walked into a room, my automatic assumption was that everybody was looking at me and picking out what they didn't like about me or what the problem was. So, and I think about it now as an adult and I'm like, well, how absurd, how presumptuous, like no one cares.
Right.
No one's that interested in you. But it wasn't that sense of like conceit where it's like, yeah, everyone's checking me out. It was like, oh my God, like everybody's looking at me. Like, is there something on my face? Do I look funny? Are my arms big enough? Like anything you could think of.
Was that a short period of time?
The shirt is stupid. No, it was from as young as I can remember to, probably early 20s is when it started. I started really actually doing something about it, and figuring out ways to combat it. As a young adult. And I think that's why I was had such a drug problem, is because that was the easy way, socially interacting with people that's a great excuse. If you're stumbling around like a moron and saying stupid things and looking ridiculous, well, yeah, of course I am. Look at what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Versus being a normal kid, who's doing those same things and making whatever silly mistakes that you believe you're making silly mistakes. You don't have an excuse for it.